and to demystify, and I'm very sure I'll be a victim at the end of this discussion, and Mr. Home is already smiling at me and wondering, why are you spending more? Spending, how much income are you getting and how much are you spending on rent? First things first, atuambia what is a salary, wage, yeah, when you talk about stipend and all these earnings accrued, because he's here up until 9 o'clock. Take advantage of that. 0712223385. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
Why are you smiling at me?
Because I'm smiling because it is a good day. We've woken up well. The Lord has been gracious to us. You can see the weather is perfect. The news is not perfect, though.
Yeah.
But I'm smiling at you because you discussing an important subject. We had a good discussion here last week. We were looking at how to live within a means. And somebody asked, how much of my income should I spend on rent? And I said, well, I think that's a good discussion to have. Ideally, I don't have an answer, but I have a discussion.
Oh, you have a discussion?
Yes. So let's invite the listener to discuss with us. Maybe they should tell us.
Okay.
What percentage do they think is reasonable?
And how do we get to this percentage?
Yes.
All right.
That's part of the discussion.
0712-223385. That is the studio SMS line. You can also use it on our WhatsApp line. And it will be a very, very interesting topic. And the likes of watu wa Riruta. Nataka kujua, hapo Riruta, unalipa rent na unapata pesa ngapi? And how did you arrive to that figure? Take it away, Mr. Wahome.
Thank you. And Chris, and it's good to have you here this morning. For the benefit of our listeners, I want to say welcome to the discussion today. If you're in for the first time, surely this is where you should have been before. And we thank God we're back to this hour between 8 and 9. My name is Wahome Ngari. I'm the founder of the Personal Finance Academy. I'm a financial literacy coach, and I am grateful to God because I've seen people come out of debt. I've seen people plan and start successful businesses. I've seen people plan for their children's education. And a lot of people have harmony at home because they can work around money issues together. Because our business is very simple. Just let people be more equipped in how to deal with money and how to earn money. And that's why we tell them we have literacy programs that they can actually enroll. We open to be invited to the workplace. We open to be invited to groups so that we can be able to discuss. And I just want to commend the insurance industry. They are honoring their very best on Friday evening. And we are very, very happy that a good number of those being honored are masterclass graduates. And we want to say heko to them. They came, they learned, and they have used it. They bettered their life and the life of their customers. And Chris, today we starting a new intake of the masterclass. And if anybody is considering to understand the psychology of money, you know what you call the psychology of money? Why do you deal with the money the way you deal with it? Like you said, your incomes, and we have multiple incomes, and we're going to talk about that in a short while. How do you deal with expenses? You know, the way we do shopping, the way we do buying, the way we do savings, we do investments. All that thing has something to do with psychology because money means different things to different people. And if somebody wants, that's the first topic of the masterclass. We have a few slots tonight, and if you want to join us, it is on Zoom. It's at 7 p.m. And so if you just send a text to 0708-150-137, a seat can be reserved for you. And it is good to enroll in this masterclass because you'll be able to deal with your financial resources. Like you said, incomes, and we have multiple incomes. I'm sure we all know what a salary is. You work for an employer, you get paid for your expertise, for your time, for your sweat. Wages are in the same category. Wages and salaries are literally almost the same, just that wages tend to be the lower incomes. Maybe they are paid daily or they're paid weekly. Salaries tend to be paid monthly. We have stipends, we have allowances, we have all the money that you get paid for the things that you do. Some people charge a fee for the services that they give. There are people in business who make a profit. There are people who have rental properties who make rent. So all these is a kind of incomes. And with all that kind of resources, then we need to be able to plan our short-term, our medium-term goals so we can deal with the bigger things in life. And those are the things we come and we learn in the masterclass so that we can develop ourselves and become much better. So I want to invite you, my listener, take a chance, join this new cohort that starts tonight. It's virtual, so it's from 7 to 9 in the evening. And since we have 5 slots, book one of the 5 remaining on 0708 150 137. Just send a text, and somebody on the other side will respond to you. Chris, we say the rains are here, and I know the farmers are excited. Sometimes the people who are not farmers are not excited because the roads are wet.
And what if you have a shoe that is torn?
Yes. That's what I say. Not everybody is excited, but we thank God. With these rains, we obviously know we're not going to be hungry. Within a short few days, we will have mushisha in the market and other veggies.
Sure.
But on the other side, we need to say serious prayers for the Middle East. I think things are getting out of hand. And this morning I was reading Genesis 13:8, and this is Abraham talking to Lot. And I think all those people who are fighting in there, they are offsprings of Abraham. Whether you come from the Isaac side, the Ishmael side, or you're just a believer. And Abraham is saying to Lot, let us not have quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. And I think because we are all close relatives, let's pray for peace, because that war is likely to affect people in a bad way. Those who have relatives working in that region, I know their apprehension levels, and within a few days, the oil prices are likely to go up, and all of us will be impacted negatively. So let's pray for peace. Those who can pull strings, let them pull the strings. But for us here tonight, this morning, we just want to have a discussion. And it builds from the discussion we had last time, because we were saying, I think we got to a consensus where we should stop spending more than we are making on a monthly basis, because spending less than you earn is obviously a formidable challenge. It's not easy. It is not something you do easily. But we can live happily on less than we make if we stop chasing status, we stop chasing things that don't really add the quality of life that we are. And so we said we should not worry about everything. We should not think we will be able to get everything, but we can live on. And we said if you want to live within your means, we discussed 4 steps that we need to follow. And step number 1 was to capture our incomes every month, so we can be very sure what incomes. You talked about salary, wages, stipend, allowance, all those things. You cannot manage what you don't know. So you need to have a record of what did I earn. Because somebody comes to us via M-Pesa, at least via M-Pesa. Some money comes via the bank. Your employer pays you in the bank, but it goes in a standing order. So you do not even see that money. Some money comes to you in cash. Your friend pays back the loan you gave them, and another guy comes and you pass it on to him. Without a record, we can't be very sure how much we are dealing with. And if you're not sure how much we are dealing with, then we are not even sure where it is going. So the first thing is we just keep a record every month, whatever we earn. All big organizations do that. Every serious business, they hire very qualified accountants just to make sure that we are very clear how much revenue we are generating all the time. The second step was to capture the expenses daily. We said keep it simple. Just capture the item and the cost, and it could be a notebook, a diary. You can have an app on your phone. You can have a financial tool on your computer. Keep trail of expenses. Your receipts, your M-Pesa records, all these, so that you're very, very clear where the money is going. And at the end of the month, we said correct your expenses into various categories. Correct says put things that are related together. Put housing together. What is housing? It is rent in there. It is power in there. It is water in there. Whatever you use for your housing cost, there's travel cost, and there are many things that could be travel. The Uber is travel. Public transport is travel. Maybe if you have a car, fuel, service. There is school, and there are many things around school. Uniform, fees, levies, and all those. There's giving, and there are many forms of giving. So you correct and you put them in a given category. Once you have categorized like that, we say then you study each category and see what can I be able to adjust. If I look at my travel, and I think that bill is too high, then I must ask myself, what can I be able to do about it? And maybe there are things I can do. Have you ever seen people move a house? They go closer to where the work is. So then you don't have to spend a lot of money traveling. There are people who wake up early. There are people who hit the road early so that then, you don't get stuck in traffic for long hours. You don't pay expensive. There are people who say, why are we using 2 cars as a family? Why can't we share 1 car? There are people who park their car and they say, this place where I'm going, public transport will serve me well. There are people who say, okay, why do I have to use a boda every time? I can also walk. It's no problem. So when you're looking at an item, you get a complete idea. And I think it's when somebody looks at that, that's when you start noticing what is costing you a bit more money. And I think that's where the question came from. How much of my income should I pay in rent? Because now when you do percentages, you can see these percentages look very high. And when we do that adjustment and you allocate it the next month and you repeat the steps and it becomes a lifestyle, then it gets very easy because now you have a complete handle. You know where the money is going. You know what percentage is going where. And then you can be able to ask those questions because you notice, a lot of people now do that and notice one thing. That rent is actually the biggest expense for everybody every month. If you look at all the way the money goes, rents tend to be higher. Unless you're living with parents. As long as you're living and you're paying rent, of all the things you pay, rent is higher even than school fees. It is higher than food. It's higher than everything. And that's where the question comes on. If you notice that it is the biggest expense every month, then you ask yourself, how much should I spend on rent? And so if you're wondering how much you spend on rent, I think the discussion is here for us. It's sort of a helpful guide to help us determine how much we should pay, regardless of income. As it is today, at the end of February, I think inflation was about 4.3%. So, and now, we just talked about the war and the possibility of oil prices going up, and that means the cost of commodities will rise. Whether the war goes on or the war doesn't go on, because of inflation, the cost of things is going to go on. And so that's why it is important to start determining how much we might spend on rent, because rent might not go up that fast. And like we said, rent is often the largest monthly expense for many people, and it is essential to understand how much you can afford to spend on it. And this will ensure that you don't end up compromising your other financial issues, their other financial goals. Because we are spending too much on rent, that means something else is suffering somewhere, because we're working from the same pool of money. So it is important to know that everybody's financial situation is different. We are all different, so percentages don't work well for everybody, although we work with percentages. There are people still living at home with their parents. There are people who are living in their own house. So we have all these things. So when we have a well thought out budget, then we can ensure we live comfortably and we are saving for the future. So even before we start looking at what houses are costing in different estates, it's a good idea to have an idea to discuss how much can I afford, how much can I spend. And so we give some recommendations of what a reasonable rental budget might look like. And maybe we are going to offer some tips on how we can look for affordable housing. We are talking about affordable housing. So how much should I pay? The rule is very simple. It's actually 30% of your gross income, 30% of your gross income. Now, what's your gross income? All the money you earn before you pay your taxes. If you put 30% of that, then that becomes, so most economists will agree that 30% is a helpful strategy to guide you in allocating funds for different expenses at the household level. This, however, does not apply to everybody, as there are different factors that need to be considered before determining how much needs to be paid for rent. So at the moment, my reason, I don't know, are you spending 30% of your monthly income on housing cost, or are you spending more? So you might want to consider a few things when you're looking at your rental budget. It is important to consider several factors that might enable you to see how much you're paying. You want a comfortable lifestyle. And so you're looking at the income. So we're saying this is the first consideration. This is one of the most important factors to consider, because it's out of that income that we're going to pay the rent. And your income determines how much you can afford to pay for rent each month. You should make sure that your monthly payment, your monthly rent payment is equal or lower than 30% of your monthly gross income. I think that we are being clear. So for somebody earning 30,000, we're saying you should spend anything from 4,500 to 9,000 on rent. not beyond that. If you're spending beyond 9,000, you're straining yourself, and there are things that ought to be done that are not getting done. So we might have to work. For somebody earning 100,000, we're saying anything from 15 to 30,000. That's what we're saying. So depending on your monthly expenses, you can decide to spend a lower or higher than the length we suggested. The other consideration is your living expenses. In addition to rent, we'll also have to think about other living expenses. This includes our regular expenses. We have food, utilities, transportation, insurance, or whatever else to do. So before deciding the rental budget, it is essential to have a good understanding of your overall monthly expenses. And this is why we say record them, be sure what they are. And this will ensure you can afford your rent while still being able to pay for the other necessities. Because if you spend more on rent beyond the necessities, the challenge is we start getting ourselves into debt, so that now maybe we are borrowing to pay school fees, we are borrowing to, the way we start buying things on hire purchase and we get ourselves into heavy debt because we are trying to balance. And this could be, that's why we recommended capturing expenses daily so that we can be sure what the exact amounts are. The other consideration is our savings goal. If you have short-term or long-term savings, you want to set up money for your children's education, you want to own your own home, whatever else you're planning to do, it's good to have a consideration. How much am I going to spend in that area? How much am I looking to spend in that area? The other consideration is the location. The cost of living and rental prices can vary greatly depending on where you live. And then so we consider a few things. If you're renting somewhere close to CBD, city center, if you're somewhere in Kilimani, you're in Westlands, you're in Gara, all those places near the city, they'll cost you more. And they are likely to cost you more than maybe if you're in Syokimau or at the river, Kitengera, Kino, or all those places. So as you're deciding your budget, research on rental, things that you must want to do a bit of research and consider. But as you do that, we must also factor in transport. It doesn't help to move out all the way out, say, to Rimuru or all the way to Kisaju because the rents are lower. But then the cost of movement will actually be very high. The amount of time you're going to spend on the road will also be very, very high. So it is good to be aware of the average rental prices for the type of house that you're interested in. The other consideration is we have to think about amenities. You're not just living alone. You might want to live in a luxurious apartment where there's a gym, there's a pool. For those ones, you will have to pay more. Or you might be willing to compromise and you're going to go to a community gym. You're looking at schools, you're looking at shopping center, you're looking at other facilities, the churches that you go to. When you consider all that, it helps you to start thinking, where can I be able to get that? Where can I be able to live? So whatever income you have, if you work around 30%, then you'll be able to see what this is. So then you consider all the other things. Am I going to live too far away from work? Because, and we've seen people who live very far away. You spend 2-3 hours coming to work. But the cost of movement, if you consider in whether it's your own fuel, whether it's public transport, when you consider the amount of time you spend on the road beside the fuel, when you consider how early you have to wake up and how late you get home and how that affects your relationship with other members of the family, maybe you don't see your children, maybe you don't get enough time with your spouse. Those are many considerations that we have. So while we are working at 30%, I think we have all the other things that we have to consider. I don't know that, Chris, that's making sense to you.
It is. And then somebody's asking, could you highlight briefly on rental income tax in Kenya? Is it applicable to individuals who are living for example, mtu kama mimi nimekodisha nyumba. How am I affected?
Rental income tax is for those who collect rent, not the ones who pay. The ones who collect. It's an income, it's a tax for the income. So you have a unit and you are renting it for 10,000. Okay, the tax you need to pay is 7.5% of what you're collecting. So that's what rental tax is all about. So it's tax for the landlord.
Oh, not for the tenant.
No,
Okay.
the tenant doesn't have to pay that tax. Yeah.
Oh, I hope that is clear now.
Yeah.
So basically, you've talked about how much we should be spending. And when you look at those figures, some of them, somebody will say, Mr. Wahome, hiyo nyumba utapata wapi ya 4,000 na ukiangalia 4,000 inakaaje? So how do you go about it?
That's a good idea. That's a good thing. I mean, we're saying, I think we talked about somebody earning 30,000, and we said between 4,500 and 9,000. We're saying if you're spending more than 9,000, you will strain your resources completely. Okay, are there houses for 4,500? Are they available? What do they look like? Where are they? You see, it's true there. Isn't in fact, and now that you talked about 4,500, and I know this is not a popular subject, but we have to speak about it. In the affordable housing, okay, for 4,500, you start becoming a homeowner.
Okay.
I think it's what, I'm not sure there's a 1 bedroom or it's a bed sitter. I think it's a bed sitter. So for that, you can actually start owning the space that you live in. Most people who have just maybe left college, whatever place they live in bed sitters, whether you go to Roaka, Kino, Kitengelas, I think for 9,000 you can get yourself a bed sitter. But if you want to look for 4,500, obviously there are many neighborhoods where you can get that. Yeah, largely it may not be just on the road, it might be slightly away from the road, but those are available. We said if somebody is on 100,000, anything from 15 to 30,000, I think that can get you a house somewhere. There are many places, whether you're looking at many places in on Thika Road, Kasarani, Roysabu, Ruai, Githurai. If you're looking into any direction, Rongai, Ngong, if you're looking into Kikuyu, if you're looking into Syokimau, Embakasi, I think there are many places where these houses can be available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kwa hivyo, all is not lost. And
I think what we might want to do is shopping. And the good thing is nowadays, there's quite more than enough places where you can go shopping. You can shop online because there are many places where you can get help. And so let's consider how you can actually, for that 30,000 you're saying, we're saying we're going to take in consideration a couple of factors to find what fits our financial means. We want to be comfortable, but we also want to take care of our financial obligations. It doesn't help living in a big house and we are struggling paying rent. School fees, or we're struggling, feeding ourselves. So there are several factors to consider when we're going to set our rental budget. So let's think about some tips when we are looking for these houses. The first thing is we need to do research different neighborhoods. Consider looking for housing in less expensive areas. If you have time, you can obviously be able to check. I mean, I see people live in many different places, and the city is very, very big. So, like I said, if you're living in a very small unit in Gara, you're going to pay so much. But for that same amount of money, if you, say, left and you went to Riruta, you went to Keno, you went to Ruaka, you went to Kasarani, you might find it's going to give you bigger space for that. The other thing is you determine your priorities. You may consider getting to house in areas that are close to your work or your school. It may be expensive, but it is closer to your work. What do? You cut out your cost of movement. That money that you would have spent for movement now goes into housing. Because, if you're lucky enough to work where you can walk to work or where it will take you just a few minutes to get to work. And I've seen people who have actually worked out this. Yeah, you go live closer work and you buy a motorcycle or you buy a bicycle. And we're getting in the culture of cycling, just that our other drivers are not very friendly to cyclists. They don't make it easier. And of course, in this weather, cycling becomes a big challenge. But I know somebody who told me the other day, they actually live in Kikuyu. They work somewhere in Upper Hill. They have cycled all their days. And they're always very happy since the Southern Bypass was done, because it's very easy now for them, because much more spacious, and the cycling space for him. Again, you can be close to where the school is. The cost of moving children to school, they have a bus or you're dropping them. This can become a big issue. So you determine your priorities, and this can be a compromise to save money and time on transport, or live slightly further and pay less rent. So there's always that balance. Do I go stay very far? I mean, I can go all the way up to Rimuru. I can go all the way up to Machakos. I can go all the way to Rukenya, faraway places. But you might save on rent, but you might have to pay it on the road. So this is going to be a balance. There are a lot of online resources where you can search for houses. There are websites like Buy Rent Kenya, I think, and there are a couple of others where you can be able to search for affordable rentals and be able to compare prices in different locations. By the way, Chris, do you know you can consider roommate? How did you do it when you left college?
That was in school.
Yeah, no,
not
when you
now.
left, not school, when you left college.
We are not Indians.
Okay, you might be Indians. You can share a rental with one or more people. This is going to help your cost. I mean, this is what we did when we left college. I'm not talking about somebody with a family. I'm talking about the single people.
Oh,
you
single
go and
people.
take a 2-bedroom house. You have a bedroom. You have a bedroom. We share the balance of the spaces. Isn't that what happens? You can be able to do that. Again, why do you want to pay all your money in rent instead of building yourself? And you only need that small space that you have. So you might want to consider. That will lower your monthly housing cost.
But you see now, Mr. Wahome, if you could go that route,
yes,
you might find that you have a very crafty roommate.
It is you to choose. You have freedom to choose. If you listen to people, I think who left college in the 80s, 90s, that was very common. I don't know if it's common today.
It was common.
It was very common. It was very, very common. And we are saying it can be. You can also negotiate with your landlord.
You take it to the family level or the...
No, not the family level. I think when you have a family, you need the freedom of the family to live alone.
Okay.
So I don't think at that level you want to be sharing. What you might share is space. There are places where there are 2 units in a compound. And one family can live in this unit, the other family can live in this unit. I mean, there are many places where there's a main house, there's a guest wing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you take it as 2 different families, you can share the compound. Not the house.
Have you ever visited any police unit?
Yes, I have.
Those are families.
Well, and that's what we are not recommending. That we are not recommending that. I mean, that's very, very stressful, and I mean the people who are responsible for that, I'm sure they do a big disservice to our officers. You cannot expect them to pretend that a bed sheet is a wall. I mean, that's not a fair thing to make them. But I'm saying, like, for single people, sharing a room, considering a roommate should not be a very difficult thing. You can also negotiate with the landlord. Sometimes, their property is staying without tenants.
Yeah,
yes,
it is happening.
Yes, it is happening. So if you went there, don't just take the rate they give you, negotiate. Maybe they've not had a tenant for a while.
I've heard it before from where I stay. People pay different rates.
Yes.
Depending on how you came
negotiate.
there. And then you might find you're paying a much lower rate compared to somebody who's next door.
Yes.
And then they start asking, kwani ulipewa bei gani?
I mean, I find it interesting. When you go to the mama on the street and you're buying stuff, we all negotiate. Why do you think rent is not negotiable?
It's a mindset.
Yes, we must get out of that mindset. I'm not saying you go negotiate in a supermarket, where prices are marked. No, I'm not saying there. But I'm saying in the other places, you can find out. And you might find yourself off a couple of thousands. So why not try and negotiate with the landlord, see if they will be able to offer you a discount or an incentive. If they stayed without a tenant for some time and you show up, it will not be very hard. They might give you a discount.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now the other thing is you can think about using communal services. Instead of looking for that apartment where there's a gym, there's a swimming pool, and paying, and there are many of them, and you actually pay serious rents on those facilities.
You've forgotten a lift.
Yes. Okay. You can actually be able to use the same facilities. There's a gym, a communal gym somewhere in the estate where you can pay when you use. There's a swimming place where you can pay when you swim, so you're not paying all the time. And that means then you do not have to pay for those things even when you're not using them. So you can look at that. That lowers the fees you're paying. Because I know there are many neighborhoods, that's how they attract people. They'll tell you, we have a lift, we have a warm swimming pool, we have a gym, we have a member space. But you don't have to pay for services you're not using. Maybe you're so busy. We do it in the office. Have you seen for offices we have co-share? You don't need to even have an office of your own. If all you need is a desk, you go to a facility and they'll give you a desk and you just pay for a desk. The day you want to meet, they'll give you the meeting space for you to do that. If you are doing that for offices, why would we not do that for homes? So you have that. So you can find an affordable housing that you can manage your rent expenses without stressing. But the thing is, keep a tab of your expenses. Be very, very sure how much you're spending. Because once you're very sure, and I said it's a very, very simple exercise. I know these are the things that are difficult because sometimes we don't have the discipline to get it done. We are saying record your expenses, capture them on a daily basis. Think about this week. Today is Tuesday. How much? What did you do with the money yesterday? And I say, don't complicate it. Simple. What is the item? What did it cost? I took lunch. Cost me 300. That's all you record. And at the end of the month, just sit with those records. And I know you, my listener, you are very tech savvy. You can create a worksheet and put those numbers in there. Look at them. And look at them with a critical eye and say, do I like what I'm doing with my money? Is there something that I can be able to change? What is it that I can change? And this is where people change things. I told somebody the other day, how do you tell your car is too old? You'll be surprised the amount of money you're paying to the garage every month. And then you're paying and you're back to the garage and you're buying this thing and you're buying the next thing. That's the numbers will tell you that car is too old. Either you dispose of it or it continues to take a lot of money from you. How do you tell you're extravagant? You're buying things you never intended because you have a record, you're looking back. Sometimes we are generous to the fault, and there's nothing wrong with being generous. Or this is a rent season. We're actually supposed to be generous to those who need support. But you must be able to look at, I told somebody the other day, you're so generous. When you go out with your friends, you pick the tab and you pay the bill. Why are you doing that? Who said your friends can't be able to do that? You might want to borrow from Gen Z. I like their way of doing things. If you go out to a restaurant and we eat, they get a bill. It comes around and you mark what you took and you pay.
Oh.
Yeah. So, kwa nini nibebe msalaba yako? Where you
Mr.
decided to take
Wahome.
that expensive meal, so you pay for it.
Mr. Wahome, we are Africans.
I agree. In Africa.
Then why are you trying to do
Because
things?
that's the reality of where we are today. I mean, these same Gen Zs, the way they complain about black tax? You've heard about black tax?
Yeah.
The money they pay to support somebody else.
Uh-huh.
And in their thinking is, I made the money, I should be able to use it on myself. So if you're not happy to support your siblings or others, why would you support other Kenyans you don't even know? They should pay for their meal.
Those are your friends.
Yes. The day you want to buy them, you buy them. But the day we just say tukutane, everybody pays their share. So, but sometimes we are at fault. Your friends have realized every time we are with Chris, he's the one who grabs the bill all the time. So they're always happy to be with Chris. Is that the right thing to do? Do you want to be spending your money like that? So when you have a complete idea where you're spending the money and you actually bold it, take it and analyze. I've seen people move children from their school to another school. I've seen people move houses. You realize that house is so expensive, it will not even allow me. And by the way, when you start exceeding 30% of your income in rent, now we say consider buying, consider owning. That same amount of money, the 30,000 we were talking about? You can consider mortgage. It might actually be helpful for you now than to pay it becomes yours instead of you continuously paying the rent. So it is important to take those numbers and it is important to consider them. And this is where we always tell people, you need to study because it becomes important. So as you determine your rental budget, you need to pay careful consideration to different factors. What's your income? What's your living expenses? What are your savings goals? What's the location? What are the amenities? Sometimes we live in a place because when we left college, that's where we found our relatives. But we've never questioned ourselves, why do we still live here? Why do I live here and I work across town on the other side? Why don't I go and live that side of town? And by understanding your financial situation and taking time to research different rental options, you can find affordable housing that meets your needs and allows you to live comfortable while able to save for the future. Because it is important for us to consider saving for the future. So utilizing the 30% rule, you research different neighborhoods. You're saying this is the money I can. You utilize online resources because there are many online resources. We said you consider a roommate. I know you laughed about considering a roommate. We said you consider negotiating with landlords, utilizing community services and can help you to find the right price for you. So rent should generally not consume more than 30% of your gross monthly income. And this 30% rule is just a standard guideline to ensure you have enough funds for your savings, for your debts, and for other living expenses. If you want to have optimal financial health, some experts recommend try to be lower, somewhere between 20 and 25%. When you're between 20 and 25%, you have enough space. So the 30% guideline is for your monthly income. So we say it's gross because people keep asking, what are we working from? We don't work from net, we work from growth. So if you own 100,000, and here, this is the other thing I want to say, Chris. If you're a couple, you considering gross income, both of you, what's your total income? You're not considering one person. And so we're saying don't spend more than 30,000 of that. And I know my listener has heard what is called the 50-30-20 rule. And this is sort of a framework to help people in budgeting. And 50% of your income goes to your needs. The things that you need. These are what? Your rent, your utilities, and your groceries. 30% will go to your wants, your holiday, the other things you might or might not do. And 20% must go on savings. The other people who say, no, I think I like the 40x rule. And the 40x rule says your annual income should be at least 40 times your monthly rent. So you're looking at your annual income should be at least 40 times your monthly rent. Because some people are not having monthly income. They're actually having irregular income. And so if you for lower income in Kenya, for people with lower incomes, you should spend not more than somewhere below 25%, because 30% is going to cause you financial stress, and we do not want financial stress. The amount of stress people have and the amount of mental health we have resulting from money. We don't want this to be coming from rent. And so we talk about location and commute. Slightly higher rent might keep you closer to the road, closer to the work, but you might want to have a balance. And for people who have means, transport gets easier because you can control the time. You can leave early.
Sure.
If you're using public transport, there's a limitation. Maybe, although we say there's a limitation, I see public transport start operating quite very, very, very early. Okay. For somebody who is in debt, then you might want to lower your rent so that you're able to service your debt. So for the best financial health, we should aim to spend the lowest amount possible on rent so that we can maximize our savings and maximize our investments.
There's a question for you.
Yes, we can answer the question.
Let me see. Anasema, Mr. Wahome, the tenant will partly pay my rental tax because I certainly factor it to my rental charges. That is there for you. Then another question is
let me answer that. And that's the reality of things. When taxes go up, it always ends up with the consumer. That's the truth.
Okay.
When fuel prices go up, it is the consumer who pays more. So even what you're calling rental tax, somewhere to be factored in the rent. So what Leah is saying is true. Okay. But the responsibility, the obligation to pay is on the landlord, not the tenant.
But
if there was no rental tax, maybe rents would be lower.
Another one is it tangible to live far away from the city and make savings, yet you find that you spend a lot of time coming to work, and then chances are the rates are still the same. Like rent at the river is almost the same with around Kasarani.
That's why we talked about a balance. You look at a balance. You have to look at a balance. Okay, and you're saying this is what rent is, this is what transport is. Put them together. Okay. But you also have to consider all the other things. What about the schools for the children? Okay. And for some people, you might live in Rongai and you don't have business in Nairobi because that's where you work. It's closer to where you work. So it's that balance we are looking for. So there's no answer that sets for everybody. Everybody has to do their answer. After all, people don't work in the same space. People work in different places. So while somebody works in Westlands, might find it easier to go and live in Kangemi because that way they are going to have minimal distance to travel and it's closer. Other than somebody working in Westlands and living in Roiro, they have much more distance to cover. Somebody working, say for example, near the airport, they might find it easier to live in Mlolongo or Syokimau than actually to come and live in Upper Hill. So those are the considerations we're saying. This is an individual consideration that we must be able to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Time is not on our side, but it's a very interesting topic. And maybe if you could remind them on what you have in offer in regards to the masterclass and everything. And,
okay, and thank you, listeners. Thank you for the questions. Yeah, and you can see it is an interesting discussion. And surprisingly, these are some of the concepts that are taught in the masterclass. So you might be wondering what is this masterclass all about. Those are the concepts we teach of different ways of keeping your lifestyle where you, without necessarily having to pay more. It's called smart living. So you can keep a good standard of living without having to pay more. And that's why we want to ask you to purpose and join the masterclass at the Personal Finance Academy. That way you increase your financial intelligence. Financial intelligence is your ability to handle money issues with confidence. When you have the knowledge, you can actually be able to handle money issues with confidence. Whether we are looking at investing, whether we are looking at saving, whether we are looking at making money, you engage, and we're going to engage you in proven financial literacy programs. Like I said, the insurance industry is honoring their very best on Friday, and we have a lot of people who have graduated from the masterclass. So we're inviting you starting tonight. We will invest the next 10 weeks on a journey of personal finance. We're going to discover a lot of things. And the good thing is you come to a forum where you have like-minded people, you learn together, and this is a structured program where the lessons can be personalized for you. And we're saying you invest 2 hours on Tuesday evening and 2 hours on Thursday evening. This is between 7 and 9. Today you can come in for a free session. It's a fast lesson, but you can come in for a free lesson. So we're saying if you're interested, just send a text or a WhatsApp to 0708 150 137 0708 150 137. So that as we start this masterclass, you should actually be able to be there. If you're feeling the urge for personal session, you alone want to have a personal session, if you got in touch with that number, we can obviously be of help to you. If you're in charge of people at the workplace and you think your team needs to have a discussion, because I'll tell you, Chris, there are a couple of things that really troubling people at the workplace. Betting. Can you imagine how many people are betting?
Quite a number.
Have you seen that we're betting 272 million shillings daily? That's
in
how
a day.
big in a day. That's how big we are. And how people don't understand the consequences, the bad consequences of that practice. There's a lot of people who are wired and caught up in debt because it's very easy to get in debt on our phone. So when we get to the workplace, we're able to help people to see how they can manage and how they can be able to deal with the risk. If you want to engage as a couple and you want to have this discussion, get in touch with us. We can be of help. But we're grateful for the discussion. And I know now the question is well answered. How much of my income should go to rent? I think that's well answered. That is well settled. If you have another question and you ask a question, we'll consider answering it in our next session, but giving us chance next Tuesday. Okay. Thank you very much for being here with us. If you're joining the masterclass, we will surely see you later in the day.
Okay. And that is how we are wrapping up this discussion in as far as how much we would have spent on whatever we are earning. And I hope and trust that you've learned quite a number of things to that effect. Thank you very much, Mr. Wahome, for your time. Always a pleasure. And stand by for the news coming up in a short while. Thereafter, we usher in the last